Professor Ravi Vatrapu. It's my pleasure to have a panel that cuts across academia and industry. So I will start by laying out the structure of the panel, the process, and then I will introduce the panelists, and then we'll get the show on the road. So we have three panelists. Professor Vijay Chalaboina, Vice Chancellor at JK University in Jaipur, and Mr. Vivek Vardhan, the co-founder and Chief Technology Officer for G2V Solar, a Chennai and Vizag-based solar installation company, and then Professor Sharma from IIM Visakhapatnam. So we will start with the 7 minutes each. We'll do a round of questions, and then we will circle back in the reverse order, right? Or the same order. So 7 minutes each, a round of questions, and then we'll do another round. When we are, if we finish addressing everything on the planet about the subject, we'll talk about Telugu literature, right? Yeah, all four of us can do that. So let me start by saying a couple of remarks. So this session is about digital public infrastructure for climate governance. So one of the things in research is sometimes you might hate the person personally, but what they say is true. And so I'm going to quote Martin Heidegger, right, the German existential philosopher. So he wrote extensively about infrastructure and other things. So one of the things he coined was infrastructure is background. You only notice it when there's a breakdown. I think that's something, very profound thing. Good infrastructure should be background, right? You don't really talk about it. And that should be the case with utilities. That should be the case with, so now we're talking about digital public infrastructure, and we want that to do climate governance. So the first thing to do then, in the order of things, we describe the phenomena, we mathematically model it. So we'll start with the modular exemplar, Mr. Professor, right? Vijay Sekhar. Yeah.
Thank you very much. There's a conference on sustainability. I'm going to request Ravi and other organizers to make sure that we dress sustainable for Vizag weather. I too am an exception. I mean, outside it's 40 degrees, and then we come inside and we expect it to be like Alaska or, Arctic Ocean. So, but I think we can do better. We can actually sustain a little bit of a discomfort and actually, wear comfortable clothes for this weather. But anyway, let me get back to the topic. I am one of those odd men out here in the sense that I have not worked or thought really a lot about sustainability, right? I'm a vice chancellor of a university, so therefore this word keeps on coming about in every thing, but I haven't really scientifically thought about it. So what am I supposed to do? There's a standard story in Telugu. I'm sure it's applicable to everywhere. When you ask school kids to write an essay, they start somewhere, but they will always end up with one thing, There's a story about cow they write, and then, there's a cow that has 4 legs and so on and so forth. It would sound really funny in Telugu, but probably most of the audience are not Telugu, so I'm going to stick to this very poor translation. So I know one thing in my area of expertise is something called systems theory. That is, think of everything as a system, and typically you analyze, control, right? These are the two things. To do analysis, you need something called a model. And what I see around when it comes to sustainability research, the models are terrible, right? In fact, there's a very standard saying is, all models are wrong, some are useful. And we are jumping into AI age and everything, we are calling it model free. That means, AI can do wonders without ever actually thinking about a model. If that's how we thought about it 60 years ago, we wouldn't have been able to send spacecrafts to moon. I mean, take it from me. Because what can AI do? It can imitate what it has seen. But if you're going to send something without thinking, to space that you haven't seen before, what would happen? So fundamental models are extremely important. I mean, we don't even ask questions like what will happen if we fill the entire globe with windmills? What will happen to weather in general? Has anybody even thought? I mean, I've been thinking about this question for 10 years. Every time somebody talks about sustainability, I ask this question and they just brush it away. I'm going to just basically loosely talk about various things that I find where modeling is poor, the analysis is poorer, and therefore the control part, which is where it's supposed to take action, is completely wrong in general. So we have to get together and really do something, and that's what these conferences are meant to be. Somebody spoke about carbon credits this morning. I've done a little bit of work a lot of work in financial pricing, and as part of that, did think about carbon credits and pricing and things like that. Loosely speaking, basically somebody wants to ensure that their pollution levels are taken care of by planting few trees. Give or take, that's the idea. And how would we price some land that's going to be full of trees to compensate for the pollution that a factory produces? But the biggest problem is, have we modeled this particular forest for a long time? Have we modeled that, how the climatic changes that are happening while we are pricing? So everywhere, models are incomplete. There is no doubt about it. And especially, I'm a big fan of AI. There is no doubt about it. I spend couple of hours every day talking to AI on various things. He's talking about Telugu literature. My range of topics that I speak to AI is very wide. But when it comes to solving technical problems, when it comes to modeling, AI you have to be really careful. Again, I'm going to go back and repeat what I said. If it hasn't seen it, it cannot do a great job. And because of that, all the models we are going to create out of just reading data is going to be very poor. So where does that leave? So let's jump ahead and talk about the ultimate part of my expertise, which is supposed to be controls. What is control? It's a matter of basically making decisions to achieve some goal, loosely speaking. And so in order to make a decision, you need to first analyze, you need to understand what is going on. In order to understand what is going on, when I say understand, not just something static, we should be able to predict into the future. And for that, you need a model. So in reality, you cannot really decouple any of these things. You need to know why you want to do this, what you want to control, and therefore, accordingly, you pick a model. If you remember, I said all models are wrong. So basically, some of useful meanings, what is the purpose of this model that you want to do? So you pick a model that is right for you and then analyze. I know we were speaking about, you were speaking about education, sir, this morning. More and more people are very proud that they don't like maths, therefore they enter into engineering. Who knows what that connection means, but logically that is the way the current generation is connecting. Oh, I don't know maths, therefore I'm going to do engineering. So it's a very sad state of affairs. But the fact of the matter is, AI is capable of many things, but if we lose a generation who does not understand mathematics, then we are in deep trouble. Without mathematics, you cannot actually create a model that can do something brand new. So that is where we are left in terms of modeling, right? I don't know, Ravi, how much time do I have? Are you keeping track? 40 seconds. Okay, I'm perfectly timed. So let's get together and actually put some fundamental questions. Some of them could be very theoretical. Like I said, if you fill up the entire globe with windmills or basically solar panels, what will happen to the overall weather? We may not be getting exact answers, but we get some interesting answers. And those are the extremes, right? Then, of course, the most practical answers are very local and things like that. Now, for all these things to work, the terminology of controls, we use something called sensors and actuators. Sensors are to measure, actuators are the ones that act upon something. So the digital infrastructure that the title talks about is entirely, what kind of sensors do we have? And then that's the first thing we need to do. That can only scratch the surface in terms of to understand something about the system. But like I said, from that sensor, you get the data, then you build a model and then analyze and then think about the decision making. These are the 4 steps that are missing. The topic is actually just about the sensors. So I'll stop there. Thank you.
So, Vivek, so I would now invite you to build on that. So let's assume a world where models are built, ideal, or suboptimal. So I want you to run through, how this infrastructure is working for you, both as an engineer and as a vendor, right? With customers, you're dealing with a multi-sided market in many ways. So go ahead.
Yeah, thank you so much. Good afternoon, everybody. This is Vivek Vardhan. I would take about 10 to 20 seconds to thank my parents, my ancestors, and my teachers who made me capable of sitting here between stalwarts and making me capable of at least speaking a few words, being capable of speaking a few words. That being said, this is a post-lunch session, so I'll try to keep my speech brief because I can understand. See, it's not very long ago I was sitting in one of the last benches of my own college, trying to avoid lectures. So I can really resonate if some of us are feeling sleepy. So when it comes to, I come from an industrial background. When we talk about sustainability, when we talk about solar power, etc., a lot of other renewable technologies, it's a sad state of things in a certain way, because most of these models, most of these technologies are just a copy paste retrofit that we got from the West. These are not made in India for India. So that is something that you understand once you start closely working with these models. Let's take solar, for example. I run a solar company. So, it's basically me, trying to contradict my own work. But currently, we do not know what's going to happen to all of these gigawatts of solar panels once they enter end of life. There is no comprehensive or a controlled recycling measure in place or a roadmap in place currently. However, that sad part being put aside, that's, I think, more of an industrial / commercial aspect of the industry. Today, most energy utilizers or energy developers or energy generators, they are also generating gigabytes of data. So that is something which is irrefutable. Today, the question is not just if you turn on a switch in Orissa, how long will it take for the bulb to glow in Visakhapatnam? The question is, who is going to do it? Is there a predictability model to that? Is there a verification that the switch was turned on in Orissa? And is there any kind of data as to what is the efficiency of the entire process? So this becomes the core aspect of power industry today. That being said, when we talk about data, there's a huge amount of greenwashing happening today in the industry, across the industry. Everybody wants to go green. Everybody wants to save taxes, which are going to be incurred in the future in the form of carbon taxes. So that being said, now everybody wants to go green all of a sudden. Everybody wants to become eco-friendly all of a sudden. However, how much of this is verifiable? I can always, it's like finances. I hope there's nobody from a finance background here, but so professor of finance, but I had this old professor in college who used to tell me, if you want to listen to the truth, avoid 3 people: lawyers, statisticians, and finance people. So I think data analytics can also be added to that, because today you can model things any which way you want. So that being said, a clear, what I would like to see happening in the coming future is standardization of data collection and modeling. Unless that is there in place, what happens is everybody can claim disproportionate numbers of carbon credits or the amount of greenness that they have in their process loops entirely. This data has to be open sourced, it has to be verifiable, auditable, only then it is going to make sense. Adding to what Professor Vijay had said here about AI, there's this wonderful phrase that I caught sometime early when I started using ChatGPT. It's garbage in equals to garbage out. So if you're feeding garbage to AI for modeling, it'll throw back garbage at you. So this, I think, is the layer that is the most essential part of what we collectively can do and should do. That being said, I'm happy to take any questions once this discussion proceeds. Thank you.
So you're ahead of time, right? Maybe a quick follow-up because we still have time on the clock. So can you speak about the use of the public infrastructure as a vendor, the digital public infrastructure? How is that experience, with clients and so on, particularly for governance aspect? Yeah.
There are multiple stakeholders in this picture of climate governance, especially when it comes to digital public infrastructure. The first stakeholder is somebody who's generating the power. And today, power generation is not centralized, it is decentralized. I'm sure you would have seen that your campus, this campus has a lot of solar power. This in itself is a power feeder. It's a power generator and a power feeder. There are multiple other today, residential rooftop solar, commercial rooftop solar, there's small wind turbines, large wind turbines, etc. All of this, everybody is a prosumer today. They are not just pure consumers. So there is an element of power generation with respect to everybody. And this is fine because the 2009 Electricity Act says you are free. As an entity, you're free to generate your own power. You don't have to depend on the public grid. That is the number one stakeholder, power generators. Then comes the power processors and the aggregators, which is APPDCL, the discoms, the distribution companies, so to say. These are not just billing mechanisms. APPDCL companies like these, if you are from Maharashtra Electricity Board, Tamil Nadu Electricity Board, the state's electricity boards, they are not just billing companies, they are data aggregators as well. Today, with the advent of smart metering, there is access to tons of data that is being generated from the consumer point, from the feeder point, from the prosumer point. So when all of this data is there, what we lack really, and therefore the other stakeholder is the end user of this entire power that is getting generated and dispatched. There is no standard where all of this data can go and sit in a place. There is currently no standard. From the industry, if I have to speak, we deal with brands of inverters that come either from Israel or from Austria or from Switzerland, etc. All of them have their own monitoring platforms. All of them have their own data pushing platforms. All of them have their own independent cloud service. When we talk about battery technology, batteries have their own IoT cloud service. They push data into their own service. And what exactly is the discom monitoring? What is your utilization? That's the only current, or what is your production? What is your utilization? That's the only bidirectional data that the discom is currently monitoring. However, what would be needed is a standardization to put all of this data. Based on the standard, everybody can start pushing data, and that will mean there is better control and better predictability of, let's say, solar power. We need to understand how solar power can, because it's intermittent, what is the forecast of solar of, let's say there's a feeder. We need to know what is the climate going to be in that area for that feeder, so that it generates some X amount of power, so that the other generators can be put on standby at a certain level. This kind of modeling, this kind of data, this kind of standardization, if it is there, and if it is made open to stakeholders, there will be much better decision making when it comes to development of power projects. I think that would be the solid point that would we would want to see coming in the coming future?
Thank you for that. With that, we'll come back to questions. We'll take them together. So Sharma, now it's your turn to talk about compliance role of in monitoring. So the floor is yours.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you, Professor Ravi. And I must congratulate my colleague, my dear friend, my younger brother sitting here, Professor Shiv, for having this initiative for this kind of a learning platform. To make you to create a kind of in-depth understanding, to have a deep dive into the subject, I would just like to give some facts and figures. Through that, you will understand. Why should we discuss about sustainability, circular economy, creating SDGs from UN government, and we are talking about ESGs, etc. You press escape, my dear. Just press escape. Everything is there. Yeah. You see, look at this research done recently. This graph talks about why the need of the hour today. Several platforms are discussing about the requirement of sustainability and kind of, the discussions what we are talking about, AI, the role of AI in climate, governance at all. See, up to 2008, we are all happy and we are consuming the rate of, the regeneration capacity of the earth. 1 earth equal to 1 year's capacity of earth to regenerate the resources that are required for human beings to live happily. We see the graph. Beyond 2008, we are consuming more. Consumption levels are high. So the research, subsequently they suggested the kind of consumption rate that is being, moving ahead of the rate of consumption actually required, right? So if you go on this kind of consumption rates, by 2050, we need almost 3 earth capacity to live in this country, in the world. Is it possible? Ask a question, you're all researchers. Is it possible to have 3 earth capacity? Impossible. We have only 1 earth, 1 planet, right? So the researchers say, yes, there is a path. If you follow the path, we'll come back to 1 earth capacity. That means whatever earth has regenerative capacity, 1 year sufficient to regenerate, and we can live happily. That's why all these concepts called, digital PIs, circular economy, sustainability, all these things have come. So we must understand from the genesis of these concepts, right? And if you go on discussing on this, based on this, the scholastic experts have created 16 SDGs, 17 is important. If you cannot do it individually, collaborate. That is what 17th one says. So the basic thing for this the conference, what we are talking about, I will focus on 3 SDGs, 11, 12, and 13. Creating sustainable cities, and then creating climate energy. That 13 is very, very important, which is the need of the hour we are going to discuss. And of course, adding the flavor of AI gives you more energy or not, we will see how. I will bring only Indian perspective, because we have to look after our country. As our professor says, the city of Vizag weather, it is changing drastically. Why it is happening? Have you ever thought of it? So look at these 3 circles, what I marked here, right? Creating sustainable cities. How do we create sustainable cities? By linking it to climate changes. How do we have a governance of the environment in which we are living? People are there who does a lot of research on life cycle assessment. If we see an organization, my dear friend is, that's why I asked him when I met him, you are into services? He says, yes, not into manufacturing. If you take any kind of a manufacturing, in terms of, the energy and resources, what we do, we create a lot of pollution, climate disastrous situations to climate by air pollution, water pollution, waste generation, by taking out all your raw material, then manufacturing, assembly, then, packaging, and then delivery to the consumers. Consumers start using it. After the utility of the product, what you will do, you'll give it to you for disposal. And then reverse transportation, reverse logistics, forward and transport. So everywhere we are creating, hazardous situation to the climate. And how do I monitor it? Is it only for manufacturing units? No. Services also creating a lot of, hazardous situation to the climate. Right? To me, when I talk about public infrastructure, though I am a dean building and works, it is no more, kind of public infrastructure is, no longer for, roads, ports, power grids, as my friend was mentioning, like intelligent infrastructure. And our definition is matching with UN definition. It's a fundamental, systems that have been created using technology. You may call today artificial intelligence, but the digitization of the public infrastructure known as a DPI to create, seamless interactions of the three entities, the people, the we are working on, the businesses, the dependent upon both ends, governments. Government and the public, our business houses are trying to have seamless transactions. That is DPI. So the government of India, you might have all gone through in the morning sessions, I don't know. If you're gone, I'll cut down. Jan Trinity, you all know Jan Dhan Yojana, and then Aadhaar and mobile connectivity. You see the numbers. We are moving ahead of the global expectations. We are a trendsetter today. Based on this, I'll share this presentation with my friend already I shared. Anybody can, this is from public departments only. Our colleagues in departments share a lot of information to us. Now you see the Indian stack, which is, a marketing agency keeping stock of all these DPS. What all the DPS we are talking about in India? See the numbers, sir. And how do I monitor it? How do I make them to comply to, climate governance? These are all initiatives of Government of India where there is a drastic reduction in carbon dioxide emissions, greenhouse gas emissions, waste reduction. How do we do it? The UPA, which is see the numbers. And for example, if you see the public fund transfers, major projects, mega projects, minor projects funded by Government of India, paperless transactions. So many lakhs of crore rupees have been shared between the public as well as the government. And it is just by a click. Just by a click. We have done a lot of projects with my friend, CSIR, ICSSR, DST, DSIR. Now they are sending the fund of the project by a click. Only thing you have to have a digital connectivity, that's all. Not only that, I am limiting because there are n number of initiatives by Government of India for DPIs. This is a digital economy I am bringing. Talk about healthcare, we have CoWIN we have created. E-Sanjeevani I have mentioned here. Digital Google doctor like, you can interact with the doctor. And today it is AI supportive. Once the technological transition took over, we are measuring and the numbers of carbon credits we are increasing. What is a carbon credit? Reduction of carbon dioxide 1 metric ton by your processes. You'll get a credit. And you can sell those credits if you have more. Those who are non-compliant, it's a penalty to them. They will learn from you, right? So if you see that kind of examples now from Indian DPIs to DPGs, global digital products, okay? So if you see the importance of DPI related to the climate changes, so some of the examples I brought for discussion, and I'll come back to you to discuss about the exact role of artificial intelligence, right? Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for that. So the floor is now open for questions. You can go to any panelist you can introduce yourself, say your name, affiliation, and then you can address the panelists directly or ask an integrative question cutting across 2 or 3 panelists.
Share the mic.
Yeah.
Thank you, sir. It was a very nice discussion. I just wanted to understand from the regulatory point of view. So when we are doing some like a carbon trading at a macro level, but we can also think, because we also need to increase the longevity of the products, so they are not producing waste. If it's is going to break or something, it need to be recalled. We need to also think in the context of recalling the product from the market or from the consumers. Like we have a challenges, like we have vehicles which are outdated. We wanted to recall. We can also have the small products which can be recalled back, and they can be also compensation where consumer can also benefit. So at a time it go to waste, whether it should go to repair or it go to recycle. In that context, a digital infrastructure can, I think, really play, where you can directly tell the consumers, now your product need to be recalled. Or if you are recalling on time, you can get some benefits. Are we not thinking in that direction at a micro level, when we are only doing tradings on the macro pictures, which can really make a very green economy, I guess?
Can
Anyways.
See, already practices are there, standard SOPs are there. For example, if you see the Caterpillar, who manufactures, construction equipment, which is the big hurdle today across the globe, construction industry is creating more waste. All right. In 2 terms: one, the machinery waste, and the waste coming from the, the building works. So they have taken care of the micro level machinery waste. All right. So they created as, offshoot of Caterpillar called Caterpillar Reman. Reman is remanufacturing. Right? There is a website you can visit. All. This is not only to my student. My student, I think you are my student, I believe. Yes. Bhushan, right?
Yes.
Right. So Caterpillar Reman, what they does, they collect the global in construction equipment, which is, you see, it is beyond repair. They have recycling plants, remanufacturing plants, and they give a certificate that is, this product is extended life of this vehicle, ELV, extended life. This product is with an extended life. They'll give a certificate how many years it will work. Thereby, they are using the resolve framework, reuse. So they bring all that kind of material, even nuts, bolts, everything. And then they reuse it. And then, like your true value of Suzuki Motors India Limited, though there is no product which is of no use today. Either we are reusing it or we are extending the life of the vehicle, right? Thereby reducing the carbon waste or any kind of a waste in the public domain, right? Is it clear? Yeah. Next to others, maybe. Am I right?
Yes.
I think I can add to that from the power industry perspective. 2 examples quickly. One is Pondicherry government has this regulation now that they've independently with an enterprise developed an IoT platform wherein all the diesel gensets present within the union territory have to be registered, and there is some kind of a hardware as well where the diesel genset uploads its uptime, downtime, percentage of efficiency and all of that during its run. Therefore, Pondicherry government is trying to scrap out those diesel gensets which are not very efficient. So I think from whatever you said, this is a practical example that's already been working out. That's one. And the other example is we were working with HPCL on a small project. So HPCL started this initiative wherein they are collecting tons of cooking oil, used cooking oil, reheated cooking, samosa talte hue and all of that, right? Those cooking oils, they're trying to collect all of this and extract hydrocarbons so that some kind of waste to energy can also be produced. So I think these are two examples that are currently in motion.
Yeah, I have a question for you, Vivek, but before that, I will pick up on something that you said about garbage in, garbage out. I become an educator for a moment now. So usually we used to call garbage in, garbage out for computer programs. If you put in garbage, you get garbage out. And I want everyone here, because every one of you will be thinking about models, and I want to educate a little bit in terms of what it means in terms of AI model, right? AI is essentially, you put something in and you think the answer should be this, and therefore AI builds a model. There is a mathematical structure to it, but it's not important. So what is the meaning of garbage in, garbage out in this scenario? I'll give this very standard example whenever I talk about AI and things like that. Now, this is not to offend or your beliefs or anything like that. I'm going to give it as a theoretical example. For thousands of years, we believe in astrology, right? Our destiny, if it can be measured, is connected to the star alignment or something like that. So the input, the so-called inputs are garbage, the star alignments, and then destiny, somehow we figure out that whether we're doing well or not. And you are going to try to connect this to, let's say, through AI, right? I mean, it's a great experiment for anybody who has access to AI tools. Check this if some of the standard theories of astrology are correct or not. So there's nothing wrong in connect anything X and Y. But I use this, therefore, this statistical statement that says correlation is not same as causality, right? Just because there is a correlation doesn't mean that one affects this thing. But then causality is an assumption of our, I don't know, it's equally an assumption, but it's based on, again, intuition of humans and things like that, which machine cannot do, right? So that's what it means, garbage in, garbage out when it comes to AI. Do you have a reason to actually think that there is a connection between these two? So computer science people use the name word features. Why I'm spending so much time? Because you guys will be involved in, like I said, you can collect all the data you want. If you don't know what data is actually going to mean for something real, it's a total garbage, right? Anyway, so you mentioned we need standardization. I'm trying to understand what that standardization is. It in terms of format? Is it in terms of frequency that you collect the data? I mean, what is that standardization you are talking about?
Essentially, all of those, format,
Okay.
frequency, packetization, and accessibility as well.
In some sense, that's an easy problem to solve. It's just basically standardizing it. There's nothing complicated about it.
I think the qualitativeness of this problem is the easier part. The quantitativeness of it, bringing people onto the registry, bringing everybody onto one platform.
Right.
I mean, currently, the discoms have been rolling out smart metering. There's been a lot of opposition because of various beliefs, because of people who say they are technical, but actually it comes from a very pseudo engineering perspective that they bring out. So I think given that kind of resistance to change, bringing a standardization is something that is a far achievable project.
Right. We have
in
to
some
agree
sense.
upon a standardized protocols. Okay, thank you.
Vivek, again, follow up. There's no ISO standard on this at all. No ISO standard, International Standards Organization. There's no such document.
Nothing like that. Currently, there's nothing like that.
Okay. So I'll give another example to build on this. Let's do a thought experiment to exercise your brains to wake you up. So in my your paternal village, Kaza in Krishna district, every morning from 6 to 6:30, there is power cut. Exactly, right? It's GPS clock synchronized. 6 to 6:30 in the morning, there is, infrastructure breakdown. Anybody wants to hazard a guess? It would require some sociological thinking. It's connected to, I'll give you a clue, it's connected to another utility. So electricity, one utility is going down. So people, and why is it? So people, if you have power there, people with motors are connecting the motor to the municipal water line, and down and then the water is not reaching, and because of the segregation of the Indian village, people that are affected are usually the disenfranchised and so on and so forth. So instead of solving the other problem, you remove power from 6 to 6:30 so that nobody can connect their, pump sets to the municipal line. Why is it 6 to 6:30? Because the solar is not strong enough to run this motor. So everybody now has to, because there's a lot of rooftop solars, right? So maybe some AI went into this prediction, but there are other questions. Let us go to the floor. Yeah.
But sir, I don't think that's AI that went into the picture there.
I'm joking. Exactly. This is Desi intelligence, right?
This-
DI,
This is basic four-man logic. The fuse is blowing out, so let's cut the power to these places.
There was, yes. Yeah, please.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. No problem. You have the mic, please go ahead. Woman priority. Yes, sir, please.
I have a question to Professor Vijay. I just wanted you to expand on this. That why did you say that all models are terrible? Is it because they are built on poor theory, or it's because we don't have Vivek sir said it's like
I didn't
data?
say I didn't say all models are terrible. I said all models are wrong,
Okay,
but
okay.
some of them are useful,
Okay.
right? I don't know. I'm going to go off now to my favorite models. If you talk about Newton's law, right? It's a model that worked for us for hundreds of years, but it's still wrong because Einstein's theory of relativity is more accurate, supposed to be. Now, is that ultimate? We don't know. We'll wait and see. But certainly Newton's law is useful. I mean, without that, we wouldn't be sitting here, right? So that's what I meant. Now, physics and things like that, very standard models developed thousands of, after work of thousands of years and things like that. I'm still wondering when we talk about AI, if AI could actually come up with Newton's law, if we give the same history and things like that. Now, earlier we were talking about finance models. There is no fundamental law in finance. I was also giving example of star alignments and things like that. There's no fundamental law behind all these things. So that's why this statement of garbage in, garbage out comes into picture. And we are at a stage where many of these models do not have fundamental principles like Newton's law. So therefore, we have to be extremely careful of models. And my statement, all models are wrong, become even more prominent when it comes to things that do not adhere to some fundamental law, like gravitational law or something like that. So, I mean, why does he say a statement saying like, finance people are part of the lawyers and other group? Simply because, I worked for several years in this finance, and I don't know if you heard of something called Black-Scholes models if you're being taught and things like that. There's an entire book written by somebody like, in my opinion, is a nutcase called Nassim Taleb. He wrote an entire book just to say Gaussian distribution is wrong. I mean, it requires one page of this thing, but he wrote an entire book. It is wrong, right? That's what I mean. Every model is wrong. You cannot get Gaussian distribution in a finance model that has so many complexities in terms of human behavior and whatnot. I don't know. I hope I answered your question. But I can hear you. I can repeat your question. Yeah.
Specifically dealing with models that do not have fundamental theories as such as, the science for that matter, physics, you have fundamental theories. And I come from economics. We work with econometric models, and
Right.
we do have something called as theories. But then again, like you said, every model has a limitation of their assumptions. And the assumption is ultimately what makes a model.
Right.
You have that, I would say, a constraint or a conflict there.
So okay, you speak about econometrics and economics. Okay, something like utility theory, you may assume that there is fundamentally true because of our own human, behavior, psychological behavior. But when it comes to econometrics, it's simple, take approximate it to some function that you know. There's nothing imaginative there. Now, the thing is, we cannot cross this hurdle of not having a fundamental law. There is no answer to that. So therefore, that's why I say, you need to know what you want to solve before thinking about what kind of model you want to do. That's not necessarily true for Newton's law, but it's true for certainly thinking about things that you're talking about. And I meant when I say people actually are scared of mathematics, and then they need to think about these models, right? So if you don't understand what this model is supposed to do, then why are you even modeling? Okay, that's why I'm very big fan of these statements like correlation is not causality and things like that. People tend to forget almost every second. I mean, you have 10 different types of correlations, Pearson's and all kinds of correlations are there. I mean, going back to statisticians, they use something called p-value, right? Now, I'm pretty sure if I ask some of you to raise your hands if you're using p-value, you will raise it, okay? Even though the Statistical Association of America has said, forget about p-value, right? I mean, that has come only a couple of years ago, but people haven't caught up. But if you actually think about theoretically, there is nothing sacred about p-value, right? So anyway, I mean, we can talk a lot about models, but that's what I mean. There's nothing perfect about any model. Some models are useful. That's all.
Yes, one more question.
One more question.
Yes, I think already in the queue. Somebody
Already asked the question, right?
No, he did not.
Okay.
So yeah, Prof. So my question is like, how much does the policy initiatives can have the impact or the push towards to make the people at the micro level think sustainably? Okay, and in that sense, I also want to. I am also curious ki how these policy initiatives are driven, by which logic. Do they involve any experts? Like any of you might be there in the policy-driven initiatives of the government or so. And, okay, because I've seen.
I'll just make one statement. Yeah, I mean, there's a fallacy in your statement, right? If you say, how does policy, every policy will influence something. Okay, whether it's doing the right thing or not is a question. I would like you to answer how to design a policy that brings the right change.
Yeah, because we have 3 minutes time, the same question was asked to Honorable Prime Minister, Sri Narendra Modi ji, by one of the panelists when he was, inaugurating the logistics policy, national NLP in Delhi. He says, I measure the policies, result, 2 P's. Policy starts for P, another 2 P's added, progress and performance. If I sign, I give an approval on a policy, I'll go back to that particular ministry after 6 months or 8 months, I'll ask what is the progress and what is the performance you achieved with this policy. Otherwise, scrap the policy, right? And he also initiated, if you remember in 2023, LIFE, L-I-F-E. What is LIFE? Life for environment. So he has given a request, an humble request to the citizens of India, right? Saying that small baby steps to reduce the carbon emissions, small baby steps to reduce the waste that is going to create hazardous situation to the environment, it creates greatest value to the country. So policy is not to keep in the folders, policy for the public. In the interest of the public, for the sake of the public has to implement the policy, the first part. For example, most of you are knowing about ChatGPT, right? And we use also researchers. It's again a threat to you, use ChatGPT or not, right? Now, government has created through the role of AI, that's what we are discussing, Mossam GPT. How many of you are aware of this Mossam GPT? How many of you are aware of this? It's a humble startup, right? So you can ask a question. What is the temperature tomorrow in your city, right? It will tell you this is going to happen like this. So in backdrop, there is a model working on, right? It tells you that, okay, 32 degrees, 48 degrees, something like that. So if you are not aware of it, then how government will achieve the targets by 2047? IOCL already declared will be net zero carbon, a carbon neutral company. So you have to declare that. And that is the progress. And that relates to your performance. So any policy is related to two more pieces, progress and performance, that at the micro level. Am I with you? Making sense?
Thank you. So we are going to conclude, but let us conclude. You want a quick question? Yeah.
Yeah, so my question is to Vijay. So do you think AI models or current AI tools and everything, does it lead to innovation stagnation?
Not at all. If you forget about natural intelligence and you want to use AI, for sure that will happen. But no, if you are smart enough, no stagnation. It's a powerful tool. Okay. I mean, I'm going to mention this in public that I wrote a book recently that's a perfect, I don't think anybody will think of that question that I asked, and we both kind of collaborated and then it gave a perfect book, right? So you have to be smart enough to use AI. And that's why I keep talking about these causality and things like that. So I don't think there's going to be any stagnation. It's going to be big boost in my opinion. But people tend to, I know not to be very offensive or something like that. Most of the PhDs that thesis we see are, something that ChatGPT can do in 5 minutes. Let us get away from that. I think it's going to be therefore a boost for a right kind of questions.
Yeah.
Can I add something quickly? IIT Mumbai, my dear, they created a center of excellence called IIRAWAT. Have you ever aware of it? It is not IIRAWAT. AI, AIR, AIRWAT. It's like an artificial intelligence based air quality measuring models excellence, right? So you go through that. They're collaborating with IIT Delhi also to measure the biological particles that are available in the air, in the atmosphere. So they are using AI models to come out every day what is the airborne particles or biological particles, because suppose somebody sneezed, a lot of this spittoon goes into the air. So that also minute level it will measure. So AI is not stopping your innovation. It is opening the doors, as he rightly mentioned, how best you are utilizing the AI. Okay, thank you.
So we'll end there. Before we end, there's always one solution that worked for Soviet Russia for long, which is Stalin's solution to every problem: no man, no problem. Right? Yeah, that's the official policy of Stalin, and it did work for him fantastically. Right? Don't measure it or reduce the level of. Don't follow the international standard for a pollution measuring. Suddenly, you're fantastic. We need to do something with the temperature. So everything is, India will be cool. So let's end there, but I'll take, maybe I'll ask you to think about it. When we talk about digital public infrastructure, the world standard is definitely the Scandinavian countries, Nordic countries. Why is that the case? Because these are trust-based societies. We are a trust-deficit society. I'll give you one example. When we went to Canada for the PR application, I need a police clearance certificate for the last 10 years we lived. We lived in Norway, we lived in Denmark for the last 10 years. Can anybody guess how much time the Danish police clearance certificate took? 5 seconds. You log in with your NumID, right, which is Aadhaar, and then it integrates. This is real infrastructure. She will appreciate this as and Vijay. So it logs into the police database, looks at all the databases. It returns a letter saying, we searched the records. No criminal records have been found for this person. Stamped, done. So let us predict a year when this will be the case in India. Good luck with that. Okay. Yeah. Well, so we can aspire to that. But with that, let's come to a close. I'll now ask Professor Monica Singhania to felicitate our panelists.
Perhaps once again, please.
Thank you. Thank you so much. So that's the.
Okay, so I request you to join now audience. So these two sessions, one is the panel discussion and the industry showcase. We've kept them together in one now. So I'll take this session in terms of the announcement. If all those three guests from the industry have arrived and now I call. Just quickly check based on did I go first? Yeah. Okay. So, first of all, thank you everyone, those who have been part of the panel discussion. And, a nice transition from the discussion to what essentially on the similar theme of ICGE, industry is also looking and contributing to the business and the society and maybe at the government level as well. So in the sequence, first of all, let me just, give you a brief information about the individuals and their organization. So we have Mr. Praveen from Maitri MedTech Solutions Private Limited. Then we have Mr. Ramachandra from MedUnited, and then we have a Mr. Narendra N. Agri DNA Ventures. So I'll follow the sequence as it is coming. First, let's call Mr. Praveen. So we'll get 15 minutes. So you can talk about industry, how your organization, and then we'll take a 5 minutes questions from the audience, and the same will follow for all of others. Okay. Thank you. Sorry. Do you have any pen drive or anything? Or you want to connect your laptop? Elevator. He'll connect his laptop. You want something? Yeah.